Welcome to From the Porch. I am Shannon Birkelback, and I'm on my porch today with Brian Cantrell, our Waller County Fire Marshal. And we're here really to talk about, because I'm curious to learn more, and hopefully you are too, about disaster preparations. Like, what is that about? How does that look in Waller County? Explain.
Sure, yeah, and thank you for having me, Shannon. What a wonderful day to do this, and a beautiful place out here, by the way.
Thank you.
So yes, I'm Brian Cantrell. I'm the County Fire Marshal. I have the Office of Emergency Management and Homeland Security, and I also have the Grants Division.
Grants, money.
Right. Okay. Free money, right?
Sorta, usually. Sometimes there can be strings attached, so we learn about that a lot. But
for sure.
So let's tell us how you got to Waller. I mean, what brought you to the area to start with?
So I was at Sam Houston State University, and I had gone through the police academy, and one of my friends who was also in the police academy came to the Waller County Sheriff's Office, introduced me to the current sheriff, Randy Smith, and I became a reserve, which is kind of like a free deputy or volunteer deputy, same powers as any other peace officer has, but it allowed me to come down during the weekends. Saturday and Sunday, I would drive down from Huntsville to Waller County. My parents lived in Cypress. And I would get in the patrol car and I would drive around, and I worked 10-hour shifts on Saturday and I worked 10-hour shifts on Sunday and had a blast.
And went back to school on Monday?
That's right, yeah, I went back to school on Monday.
That's a lot. Okay, and then you ended up getting hired on?
I did. The sheriff at the time, Randy Smith, he asked me if I had a job. I said, no, sir, I don't. He said, would you like to be a full-time sheriff's deputy? And I said, I would love to. And that's where I started. 2001, I was a full-time sheriff's deputy assigned to the patrol division.
Mm-hmm. Cool. So then how did you end up at fire marshal? How did that come to pass?
Right. So I was fortunate to be able to promote within the sheriff's office. So I promoted to sergeant, I promoted to lieutenant, and I promoted to captain. And the county judge at the time, Glenn Beckendorf, asked me to be his emergency management coordinator. So at that time, I started in emergency management, didn't know anything about it, but quickly learned, and that's where I got my start with Judge Beckendorf. Mm-hmm. And now I currently serve Judge Duhan as his emergency management coordinator as well.
Cool. So what are the different areas for emergency management? Because I know we have like fire, we have flooding, hurricanes, things like that. What are some of the different areas?
Yeah, it gets confusing, right? Mm-hmm. And so to preface it, we have cities, we have counties, we have states. So your mayor at the city is the director of emergency management, whether they like it or not, right? Your county judge is your director of emergency management. And that county judge appoints an emergency management coordinator. So as the coordinator, by its title, it's my job to make sure that fire, police, EMS, and all the stakeholders that are involved in the disaster are working together at the time of disaster. But if you would like to split it up to understand a little better, we do planning for disasters, right? Mm-hmm. We do mitigation for disasters. And the response time, you could define that as the time of the disaster. So a window of where the first responders are actually responding to that disaster and helping our local residents. And then the last side of it is probably the most important side because it is recovery, right? And so recovery is a lot of it deals with finance, and recovery is getting the community back to normal. And it's hard to define getting the community back to normal because those who have been through a disaster understand how horrible it is, right? So it's our job to assist with that, and it's also our job is to manage the finances. So the county residents, they pay taxes, and they expect us to use their tax dollars wisely, right? So in an emergency, we spend a lot of money. It could be overtime, it could be debris management, it could be debris cleanup, it could be fixing different things that are damaged at the county level. And so that money goes out from the county originally, mm-hmm. and so it comes back in form of kind of like a grant. But it's our job to make sure we get all our money back, right? Mm-hmm. And we've been fortunate over the last 5 disasters to be able to do that. We've also been able to do it to where we're not paying another company to do it, and so we additionally get paid the money for our work, getting that money back. So at the end of the day, if numbers, I'm not really good at math, so
So you get to do some accounting there too.
right. So I'm trying to give an example. So if we spend $100, we might get $105 back, and that's important to us to make sure we're recovering all that money that we spent during that disaster.
That makes sense. So sometimes it's coming from the state, sometimes from the federal government, sometimes the money disaster.
It does. So we originally have to spend the money. So if an example of we have a bunch of trees that have fallen in the road, we need to get those roads cleaned up. So our county road and bridge always do an excellent job during those times of clearing the road. But then we have to haul it off, right? We have to take it to a landfill. All that stuff gets expensive, but the county pays for that originally. We're out that money. And the tricky part is, we really need a federal disaster. It needs to be classified as a federal disaster to get our money back. So the short answer is, yes, it goes from county to state, but really to the federal government is where we're getting our money back. So it's very important if we have a disaster to receive that federal declaration so we get the money that we spent back.
Right. I think that makes sense. So you do a lot of training to prepare ahead of time for when we have droughts. The firemen are preparing. Y'all are working together in those areas, or? We
do, and that's really the most fun part about it is you get not to only work with the sheriff's office where I'm from, you get to work with ESD 200, our fire departments. I get to work with Waller County EMS, and again, several other partners that we're involved in. And so a lot of that's on the planning side. So we actually have a Waller County Emergency Management Plan, and it has annexes. I like to call them chapters. And so each of those chapters will address different disasters, right? So it might be a flood, it might be a tornado, it might be a hurricane, it might be a drought. So this is really kind of like a pathway for us to follow, like a plan, not that we can't deviate from it, and not like all disasters are the same. But that plan allows us, in my opinion, to do better in disasters. And that plan also allows, we're also able to revisit that plan. And we don't do everything perfect, I'll be the first to admit, right? But I think a good quality of our office is when if we haven't done something perfect, to look back and make sure it's a lot better, which we call like an after action plan. So we'll meet with certain entities and ask those questions and really criticize ourselves on how well or not well we did in those disasters. And we call that an after action plan. Additionally, on the planning side, we'll do things like a tabletop exercise, which basically means we'll have a scenario. Let's say we're at Houston Executive Airport and there's a plane that crashes and the fire and police and EMS have to respond to that. So we'll all get in a room and we'll look at what our plan says, and we'll just kind of do a notional. We'll just kind of act that out, and different stakeholders can provide their thoughts. And that really is good to get everybody in the same room. Additionally, it's good to make sure if we need to make changes to that plan, we can do them right there.
So with all the new neighborhoods going in and stuff, are you concerned with the flooding might be even more than it has been on, say, like tax day? I know I flooded on tax day and couldn't get out of my property. So with all these neighborhoods, I know they're supposed to plan for all the runoff, but are you having any concerns or planning for that?
It's a really good question, and we get asked that a lot. We have a process with our county engineering office. If you're down in the southern part of the county, who I just left, Katy Brookshire Drainage District, to make sure when a development is submitting plans, to make sure they're familiar with the new, don't want to go into the details of it, which is Atlas 14, to make sure when they do this development that the water is not impacting these other surrounding areas. I mean, you're already probably upset that they're building a neighborhood next to you, right? And then compound that as their water is going to flow your direction, right? So it's very important in the very preliminary planning stages that those are looked at. They're evaluated by our in-house engineers or third-party engineers to make sure that water is flowing properly.
And I've just grown up with that issue as a kid. We had our neighbors flooding us. And, at the point after it's already built and everything, there's not a whole lot we can do except for sue them, which gets expensive and complicated to have to do myself. So I kind of want to plan ahead early, which I have done some with this neighborhood and looked at the actual engineering of it. but I still have concerns.
Right.
It's been a drought.
And not a lot of people do that, right? So on the other side of it, we're always looking at, we've never, with the exception of Katy Brookshire Drainage District, we don't have any drainage districts north of that area, right? And that's just really a small area that's really on the southern portion of the county around Katy, Pattison, Brookshire, those areas. But for the rest of the county, it's a catch-22, right? Do you want to pay taxes to have additional taxes for a drainage district? Or do you want a drainage district, right? So it depends on who you ask. So those are some things that you have to evaluate there. And that really goes back to the importance that when we first get those plans, or when county engineering first gets those plans, they're taking a good look at them and making sure the water is flowing in the proper direction that it is. In my opinion, they're doing that, right? It's just troublesome for them is, we've got so much growth. And they want to carefully look at those plans, and you've got so much work ahead of that. So does it slow the process down? I would think it probably does. But I'm really pleased that they're taking the time to look at them and make sure another property is not impacted by someone else's water.
Right, right. No, Road and Bridge was very good about getting with me and letting me look at the plans and taking the time. So I would rather have less regulations and just be able to trust a department like that to do their job.
Right.
Personally.
And as you know, regulations in cities and counties, they're different. Or unincorporated areas is you can do a lot more than you could with your own property or who you sell that property to than you could where you're in a city and you have different types of zonings that just define a certain area, whether it's residential, commercial, industrial, and so forth. So yes, that's what we deal with as well as the county.
And most of the water stuff, my understanding, is going to be more state level that controls a lot of the water in the county.
It is state level, but it's local level as well. When you're talking about the development side of it, that's on us to review those plans to make sure water's going in the right direction. We do leverage a lot of grants at the state level. We leverage a lot of grants at the federal level, and those grants are used to really mitigate what we have right now is the best way to put it. So if we have a certain area that is flooding repeatedly, we can look at that, we can evaluate that. We apply for those grants to make sure those funds are directed towards that project, right? We're working on a $6 million project down near the Brookshire area, and that was fully funded by grants, right? And so we've identified that as an area of concern, and we're using those grant funds, not taxpayer money, the grant funds, to mitigate that issue and prevent water from going in the wrong directions.
Yeah, I know we're getting so big and so busy. We already have a whole grants manager for Waller County.
Yeah, and she's under our apartment, and I tell you, she's done an outstanding job, right?
Yeah, I've seen her in Commissioner's Court a lot.
Yeah. I think round numbers, we're sitting around $47 million since she's come in. So, and that's quite a bit more than she makes every year, for sure.
Worth every penny.
Right.
Cool. Well, anything else you would like to share that we should know about disaster preparation with growth that we're having? Or
I think on our end, it's important if you go to our website, you can sign up for the OnSolve Code Red Emergency Alert Center. That way, we're not going to text you or call you just to say hi. We'll use that for real emergencies to make sure that you're notified of an emergency in your certain area. The problem with that system is that you have to sign up, right? So if you do not sign up, you won't get those alerts. So we encourage our residents to go to our county website and sign up for that.
I will put that link in the show notes.
Outstanding. And yes, we have a secondary way to notify those that aren't signed up, right? Which is called an IPAWS, which is a federal system that we utilize also in major emergencies to let people know. Okay. So you're covered, but I would really prefer that you signed up to our local site. That would be great.
Sounds good. So burn bans, you get to determine that?
We do. Well, we kind of do, right? So from time to time, we have to go into burn ban. And some people love it, some people hate it. If I had my way, you could never burn in Waller County, so there would never be another fire, right? But
we have a lot of Amazon boxes, as you see.
That's right, yeah. But I probably never get my way. So really what we're looking at, they call it the KBDI, which is a drought index that tells us how dry our ground is. It's based on a measurement of 0 to 8, so and they calculate in that to 100. So if we're around 575, we start looking at instituting a burn ban, right? I don't have to tell residents that live in northeast Waller County how dangerous, wildland fires can be. So that's a major concern for us, and obviously there's a lot of anxiety up there too as well. So the Commissioner's Court is ultimately, it's their decision. I appreciate them taking my advice every time that we do present it. And so when we feel that we need a burn ban, we put it on the agenda, and then Commissioner Court approves it, and that institutes a burn ban throughout Waller County, which is really restricts any type of outdoor burning.
Right.
Whether people listen to it or not is a different story.
Well, they don't
right?
always, because even when all those fires were happening years ago, my neighbor was burning his trash and it caught my front pasture on fire. So I'm familiar a little bit with, people getting in. The fines were pretty big, so it is cheaper for you to pay for trash service than to get that fine for setting a fire like that.
Right, and it's important to note, and some of the problems, we see that problem all the time. We see problems where outside of a burn ban, people will burn, their trees and limbs and things that they need to burn. But where we see the problems is when they leave it unattended, right? They'll go back inside, or they'll go to the store, or they'll leave. So with our fire code, you can't leave a fire unattended. And the second part of that is you have to have some type of extinguishing source, right? So whether it be water, or whether it be a shovel or a backhoe, or however you plan on putting out that fire, that needs to be present as well. So that's another issue that sometimes we see, that the fire gets out of control and they didn't really have a plan to get it back under control, and then they end up calling the fire department. That takes them away from other calls that they could probably be at, and the fire department ends up having to put it out. So, and we see property damage that way too. Most commonly, it's their own.
And I know we've done controlled burns out here because I've had some stickers and some bad weeds in my back pasture, and so we did call and reported that we were going to let you know that we're doing that, so the neighbors aren't calling and telling you that.
We really appreciate that, because if you're going to have a controlled burn, it's good. You can call our office if you'd like. And when you call our office, we're also going to ask you to call the Waller County Sheriff's Office, which is the communications piece. That's where that could come out of. We also have Westcom, which is another center that the fire departments and EMS is working out of, just so we know, right? And so what we don't want is you to have a controlled burn, and we take a fire truck drives all the way from the city of Waller to come out just to learn that you're doing
my neighbors
fine.
still came over because they were like, we reported we're doing this.
They were just checking on you, right?
Yes.
That's good. You have
That's
good
good.
neighbors.
Yes, they were very good neighbors. I was gonna say too, another part of your job is have a lot more commercial buildings coming in, and you have to do permits for their fire systems, or make sure they're.
Yes, the fire marshal's office, their role is to investigate fires, right? And so that's our police component. Our fire investigators, most of them are police officers, just like a sheriff's deputy, or just like municipal police officers. And they have that because if that fire that investigation turns to criminal, that way they're able to investigate that fire all the way throughout. They file the charges, they go to court just like any other case. As you mentioned, we do commercial permitting. If you think residential permitting is going crazy, commercial permitting is going crazy as well, right? All of the stuff on the I-10 corridor, a lot of stuff north on 1488 that's coming in. So if you're going to build a commercial business, we review those plans, and essentially we're reviewing those plans for all types of fire safety, depending how you're going to occupy that building, right? So we're glad to do that, and I think I started in 2017 when it was just me, and they're like, hey, you're going to create the fire marshal's office. It's been very beneficial to make sure when people come to Waller County and they're going into a commercial business, there's that level of safety, right? If the building requires a sprinkler system, it'll have a sprinkler system. If it requires an alarm system, it has an alarm system. And that really just goes back for the safety of people that either work there and or visit that commercial building. So we're proud to be a part of that.
Does it bring in much money, the permits?
So it's revenue based, right? So our budget at the fire marshal's office is around $900,000, and that incorporates probably 7 employees. That incorporates all their equipment. That incorporates all their benefits. That incorporates all their cars. And keep in mind, it's a 24/7 business. So those revenue fees, which round numbers, it depends. It's fluid, right? So the years are different depending on how many or how big the commercial businesses are coming in. This year we'll offset our budget by about $350,000. So that those revenues benefit the taxpayer again.
Yeah, that's a pretty good chunk.
Right. So that money's coming back to offset our budget.
Yeah, just kind of thinking and predicting how many new ones we might have coming.
Yeah, and that's paid by the developer or the builder or whoever's in charge of that project.
Nice.
So if they say we're paying you to do your job, they actually are probably correct.
Nice. Okay. Well, cool. I think that was very educational. Hopefully everybody learned something today. I think I learned a little bit.
Awesome.
So thank you for sharing. Any
Well,
last words for the community? We're already going to get them to the website and get on the updates. So
I think we covered most of it.
Okay.
Thanks for inviting me to the porch.
you're very welcome. So you guys subscribe and share with your friends so they can not miss a neighbor. See you next time.